Okay, everyone, hello out there. Welcome to the next session of LifeRay Dev Life. My name is James Faulkner, and I am the LifeRay Community Manager. If you're new to Dev Life, it is a every 2-week session, a hands-on session for LifeRay developers to learn more about the inner workings of LifeRay and how to be a better developer in the world of LifeRay. So if you're working on LifeRay projects, or if you're just interested in finding out more, I should switch to my face, finding out more about LifeRay in general, and you're just getting started, or you're an experienced developer, hopefully these topics will be of interest to you, and you can learn a little bit by following along with our session leaders. As a reminder, it's every 2 weeks, so 2 weeks from today, we will have a session with Tomasz Polosowski, I probably butchered that name, about securing JSON web services in LifeRay. So if you're building web services or want to make data in LifeRay available to external applications for integration potential, you don't want to miss that session. Today, however, we have Mate Thorzo from our LifeRay Hungary office, and Mate is going to speak on LifeRay staging within context of custom applications. So if you're building apps and you are also using LifeRay's fabulous staging feature, you'll want to pay particular attention to Mate. So without further babbling on my part, I'm going to hand off the controls over to Mate. So welcome, Mate.
Thank you, James, and hello, everyone. As I thank you again, James, for your kind words towards staging and towards the Hungarian team. I'm working in Budapest and on the staging feature of the portal, and today I would like to cover 2 topics. One topic is how can a developer customize the UI of the staging when implementing a new portal instance to make the LifeRay staging UI a bit more simpler, easier to use for the different users and different end users within your organization. And the second part of the Dev Life session is how can you integrate your portlet, your application with the LifeRay staging feature, and it's going to be very easy, very simple, but primarily that's the purpose of the whole framework. Then it should be very easy and very simple. I'm going to start a screen share here. Okay. So I already set up a LifeRay portal. It's already running, and this is the default installation. This is the first screen when we start. Now I'm going to hit the configuration for the LifeRay site, and then navigate to the staging part and enable local live staging. So once I enable that, that's an initial publication. And if I navigate back to the main page, if I'm clicking on the Publish to Live section, there is a huge UI popping up, hopefully very soon. With all the different details, we have this date section now where we can schedule a publication. We have the pages settings with all different features and all different checkboxes. We have the application section. It can be even more complicated when you are using multiple applications. And we have obviously the content section, which fills up as you add content to your site. It will fill up and it can become more and more complicated. So basically, and last but not least, we have this permission section here. So I've received words from some customers that this UI might be confusing for the end users, and there is a very simple and very easy way for you to customize it, hiding different sections or making the checkboxes selected or deselected by default as you navigate through the environment. I'm using IntelliJ. That's probably my favorite IDE, and I've already set up in here. But this is very easy to create using the LifeRay IDE and using the wizard we have. And if we look at the project structure here, it's very, very simple. Actually, it might be better if I just So we have this
Could you make the font size a little bit bigger?
Here I can, for sure.
Yeah, that's perfect. Thank you.
That's better. Thanks for letting me know. So basically, a hook is a very simple LifeRay plugin for those who not familiar with hooks, where you can basically override the different default functionalities of the portal. In this case, we have the publish layouts JSP, which is responsible for the previous screen I showed you. This screen is called publish layouts JSP. And if you want to make customizations to that, you can create a hook plugin. Basically, we have an exact copy of the same JSP coming from the portal in this hook. If the only thing I have to do is I can identify which section. Let's say I want to remove the application configuration or the content section or the permission section to make it very, very simple. This might be not a real life scenario, but you can get the hint how this whole stuff works. So the only thing I have to do is just locate where this JSP is rendering the permission section and all these sections. And it is actually very simple because it's using imports. Let me quickly find it. Here it goes. So this section, this part here is responsible for rendering the data part, the content part, this specific part. This section here is responsible for rendering the permission parts for this publish layouts JSP. So let's say I want to remove, because let's say my organization is not relying heavily on the permission part, and I do not want the users to publish the permissions or care about permissions. I just want to remove it. So I'm just going to comment it out, and if I navigate to the source, I've set this hook project up, and I'm just calling it on all here. And let's wait until it finishes, and I can track the deployment. And in seconds, hopefully, I can see the changes. I can refresh my screen for sure. If I go to publish to live, then bam, the permission section disappeared. So a bit more simpler UI for the end users. And obviously, you cannot just hide sections. You can actually perform any kind of changes you want. Here, you can call out Looker services. You can modify the default checkboxes, as I mentioned previously, and make any kind of customizations you want here. So let's say I'm removing the data section as well, because I might want my end users to just care about the application configuration. Or I can set up a permission checking based on that, or something else. A custom business logic can work in this case.
So Mate, hey, quick question. So in order to set that project up, did you use the plugins SDK?
Yes, I did. So you can use the plugins SDK, and you can use the LifeRay IDE basically, where you can set up the whole environment for that.
Okay.
Okay. When it's deployed, I can navigate back, and if I checking the publish to live, then I just see the application configuration section. So it's very convenient to change the UI like this, and you cannot just change this part. Every kind of JSP in the portal can be changed more or less. So any staging UI parts you can customize, or you can open your own logic. So I think that's one of the power of the cool features about LifeRay, that you can very easily customize anything. But let's move on to the other bigger project where you have your own application, you have your own business logic, and you want your application to be supported by staging and export import. Before we continue, I want to make sure that the staging process actually is an export and import in the background. Obviously, it's not just exporting and importing, but that's the basic concept of the whole stuff. It's exporting and importing primarily. So what we can do now is just implement the plugin, implement the changes, and implement the export and import, and we can test the staging features by exporting and importing. That's an easy and convenient way to test the functionalities. Okay, I have set up a portlet. I've used Olaf's customer portlet, what he has created in the last section of DevLife. I went ahead and I downloaded it and I started customizing from there. So this is a new portlet handling used to handle customers and invoices. And I'm going to add the different staging features here. So what we have to first think about if our entities, when we are using Service Builder to generate our business entities, in our case, Olaf used Service Builder to generate the customer object and the invoice object. So what we need to know about this, that LifeRay can generate lots of staging code by using the Service Builder. But we have to know that there are certain corner cases we have to consider when using staging. Our entities has to fulfill some restriction and prerequisites in order to use them in staging, such as prerequisites for the entity, it must have a UUID and it must have a modified date and a create date as well. This is how the staging keeps track of what has changed in our portal and what needs to be published and what needs to be updated. UUID is used for finding the entity, the already published entity or already imported entity on the import side, and the modified date obviously needed to keep track of what has been published previously and what's changed since the last publish. So if I created, so as I mentioned previously, I used Olaf's portlet, and I'm going to start with the service XML Olaf created, and make sure that everything he created fulfills our staging needs. So you can see here, if an entity in the service XML fulfills a certain set of requirements, it will be automatically marked as a staged model in the portal. We have different marker interfaces in the portal. One of them is the stage model. It marks that specific entity can be handled in staging. For a stage model, we need to have a UUID. I went ahead previously and I changed that the customer entity will have a UUID and we should generate a UUID for it. So I just changed this to 2. Olaf was kind enough to already implement the company ID, group ID, user ID, username, create date, and modify date as well. These we call usually the audit columns, and the audit columns and the UUID is going to make the customer a stage model. So in order to make sure that everything is generated, I'm going to call an on-build services command, and I'm going to generate everything for the I'm going to call the command is on-build service, and it's going to generate a whole set of classes, a whole set of interfaces and new functionality to my customer entity. Here we go.
So Mate, so is it fair to say that any service builder based project can be enabled for staging simply by adding UUID equals true?
Absolutely. If you have all these columns, well, not just UUID equals true, but you have to have a UUID equals true. And these columns we call audit columns. The company ID, the group ID, the user ID, the username, and the 2 dates, the create date and modify date. And if you have these columns, then it will classify the entity as a stage model, and it can be very easily handled in staging as well.
Okay. So hey, one other question about UUID. So that phrase is used a lot in the LifeRay entities. Is that the only thing that UUID is used for, is for staging support?
No, I don't think so. There are several other cases the UUID is used, but staging primarily uses the UUID for finding the entities. So basically, in staging, we have two groups we want to map together. We have the stage group and we have the live group, or we have the export group and the import group. Those are practically the same. If you export an entity and you want to import it, you have to check before you import that the entity has been imported previously. So it won't create duplicates, it will find the references to the entity, and so on and so on. So we are using the UUID as matching the entities between the two sides. The UUID will remain the same, and if you are using a staging environment, you will notice that the web content article might have actually a new article ID, but the same UUID. The UUID in a single group is always unique. So that's a very convenient way for us to find the entity if it has been imported already, or we have to add it as a new entity. We will see in the import process code that how this whole stuff works and where can we use the UUID to query up the entity.
Okay, thanks.
So once we have everything in place, we can quickly verify if all the stuff has been generated. We have something called we will have something called a customer export actionable dynamic query. And this customer export actionable dynamic query is basically used, it's a convenience class being generated by the service builder for only the stage models. And this class will provide us a very convenient way to query up entities during the export. And basically, it will do different convenient methods for us. And so we don't really have to care about the rest of the code. It's just with 2 lines of code we can call out to this object and just export the whole portlet's content. But we will see it later. So once we verify that this is a stage model, there is also another way. If we navigate to the customer model interface, we can verify here that the customer model interface is also generated by the service builder, and here we have this interface as well. This marker interface is a stage group model, marking that this is not only a stage model but a stage group model as well, which is true in most of the case. Okay, so we can go ahead and create our new portlet data handler, which will handle the querying up the entities and calling out to the stage model data handlers. So first things first, we have to create a customer portlet data handler. It's usually done like this. I'm going to do a custom portlet data handler class, which will extend the base portlet data handler. I'm going to append this namespace stuff here, which will be used to make sure that all the parameters we use during the staging is namespace and can be identified that parameter is being used by the customer portlet data handler and none other. I will have a default constructor, and I have a couple of methods. Currently, this is just a skeleton and nothing else. We are going to extend it very soon. So we have the do delete data, which is responsible for erasing all the contents data, and we have the do export data, which is responsible for exporting the entities in the portlet, and the do import data, of course, which is a pair to the do export data, responsible for importing the stuff. What we need to do is to register this in the LifeRay portlet.xml file of our plugin, of our customer plugin. Olaf already created this, and here we can append this line, the portlet data handler class, and we just call it we just designate the path and the class name itself, and it will be automatically registered in the portal, and the whole stuff will automatically work. So that's the only thing we have to do.
So Monty, if you stop right there and deploy that, what will happen? Will it work?
Currently, it won't do anything because we haven't implemented anything yet in the methods. We will just have this class registered. What we have to do, is export and import controls. I'm going to do next, and we can actually see on the screen that something has happened. Because if we go ahead and put that whole stuff onto a screen, we will just see that the configuration can be exported and imported, but that's true generally, but none of the contents. So I'm going to share. I'm going to show you that I'm going to add this portlet to a page, and I can show you a before and after difference, what has changed, and what code is needed to do that change in just a couple of minutes. So I'm going to create a new site where I can play around. I'm going to call this customer site 1. I'm going to add the page here. Our page, very well. And I'm going to add the customer portlet. What we need to do is to implement the staging features for this customer portlet. So far, what you can see, export and import features you can use by clicking the options on the portlet right top side and click the export import. So, well, I already have the content section here, but probably because I deployed it previously. So what we have to see is that in case we come here on the export screen, we only see the application configuration section. I'm going to remove the content section very soon. So sorry about that. But basically, this is the basic export and import screen. We can see here the application, and then I will show you. I will very quickly deploy this. And we'll see that only the configuration screen is there because we hasn't implemented anything yet in this. This is just a skeleton class. Okay, it's deploying. That's good news. Okay, it's available now. So if I go here and click export import, I still have the content for some reason, but that doesn't really matter because basically that's what we want to achieve later on. So what we have to do is, if we want to add different UI parts onto the screen, we can do it by modifying the constructor. It's very easy. We have this method called set export controls. This set export controls will define the UI parts, but what we can see on this export screen I showed previously. And if we define those UI parts, it will appear in the content section here. So I'm going to use my cheat sheet a little bit, and I'm going to copy and paste over the set export control section. So basically, the export controls are being used by the different portlet data handler Boolean classes. This portlet data handler Boolean actually defines a checkbox on the UI. We have to define a namespace. We have to define a name for this, and let's call this customer entity. And we can define several other parameters, like if that checkbox is enabled or checked by default or not checked by default. But also we can define a hierarchy where I'm currently passing a null parameter. It means the children elements for the checkboxes. If I can define an array of portlet data handler Booleans here, and it will be rendered on the UI as child elements to this customer entity main element. I also have to provide a class name, which we usually do by calling go to the customer class.getName, .getName method, and that's it. So if I'm going to build this, a new checkbox will appear in the content section. stating that a customer entity checkbox is checked by default. The same I can do with the set import controls, which we usually do the same, is just setting the same stuff for the import controls. But in theory, I can define a different set of export and import controls, but we usually do the same. So I'm going to build this now, and we can see that how these two method change imply the UI change as well on the export screen. Let's just wait for the building. And the deploying. Great. I'm going to reopen that screen, export and import. And here we go. So under the content section, I have this customer entity, and I can go ahead and change it and click in and unselect and select the customer entity. These selections will be propagated to the backend, and the staging backend will know everything about it, and we can rely it if it's going to be exported or not. I'm going to show the code what is doing this. So if I'm going to import it, but I have to import a LAR file for it, but I will see the same checkbox on the import screen as well. I can define. I'm not just able to define only one checkbox, but I can define more. But so far we only need to export the customer entity only. So if we go ahead and do the export itself, know that we have a checkbox to control if we want to export the customer entity or not. We can go ahead and implement the do export data method, and we can see how it's being done. To query up the entities and then export everything. So I'm going to use my cheat sheet again, and then explain everything, what everything means here. Okay. So basically, during the export and import, we are creating XML files, and we zip those together into a LAR file, which is essentially a zip file, but we call it the LAR file. So what we need to define is we have to have a root element. Basically, this XML structure is a free form. We don't really have a very strict structure for how the XML should be formatted for different portlets, but we use a common structure. But everyone can define their own structure in their own portlet data handlers. So this is what we use. For every portlet, we create a portlet.xml file. We can see later in the exported LAR, and we are creating a root element there. It's commonly done by calling the add export at the root element. It's basically a convenience method doing some stuff for us, and it's generating a root element. Here we have the namespace and the parameter I've already talked about. The staging UI passes the checkbox state to the backend, and this is how we can get back the checkbox state, and we can rely in the state if we want to export the customers or not. So here we can see that it is designated by the namespace created here in the customer portlet data handler, and I can define the same name here to see if the user wants to export it or not. If we do not want, if the customer has unchecked this checkbox, then we just want to return with an XML file, and our job here is done, because that means the portlet data handler doesn't have to do anything more. If the end user has selected that checkbox, it means we have to query up the entities, and we have to go ahead and serialize each of the entities one by one to separate XML files. We usually add the group ID of the exporting group ID to the root element, but it's not mandatory. And here we arrive to the section where we are using the service builder generated customer export actionable dynamic query. It's very easy to use because basically we just have to instantiate the customer export actionable dynamic query, and then we can just call perform actions method on it. And this will not just query up the entities in the database, but it will actually call a serialized process on each and every entities. But life is not just simple. In order to handle these entities, we have to have a customer stage model data handler as well. The stage model data handler is actually responsible for handling the entity-specific logic for each and every entity. I've already created a skeleton of the customer stage model data handler, and it looks like this. It's very similar. The pattern is very similar to what we have for the portlet data handlers. I can define class names. That means that I'm registering this stage model data handler for the customer classes, and the staging framework will know if I want to serialize a customer or I want to deserialize a customer. It will know that this stage model data handler can be used for it. The delete is probably self-explanatory. It's going to use to delete the entity, but we are not going to implement that at this point. The get class names actually returns the customer class name, and the do export stage model and the do import stage model is responsible for actually exporting the entity and actually importing the entity. I'm going to go ahead and implement the do export stage model part. Referencing my cheat sheet, my other cheat sheet. And as previously, we have stated that exporting and importing a LAR file and handling and adding staging support to your plugin is actually a set of XML operations wrapped by a different portal methods on the top of it. What's going to happen is that in this case, if we go back to the customer portlet data handler, so once the staging process starts processing the customer portlet's data, it will do the XML part and it will start running the actionable dynamic query. The perform actions will run a database query, and it will call to the different customer stage model data handlers one by one and call the do export stage model method for each and every customer object. So besides, so instead of writing this customer actionable dynamic query, I can actually write my own query here, and I can say that for each customer, if I would have a list of customers I want to export, or a different set of customers I want to export, I can just define for method like this and call out to the stage model data handler util, which is a convenience class, and then call out to this like with this call. So what's actually happening in the perform actions, that the perform actions method is generating a customer's list I do not have right now, and it's iterating through in a way that it's calling the export stage model for each and every customer. And behind this utility class, this method will be called, and this code portion will run. What we are doing here, because the entity is very simple and we don't need too much business logic around it, we are just creating an element for this one as well, and we call this generic method called add-class model. This add-class model is necessary for actually serializing the customers to the LAR file. So each database record for each customer will be a different XML in the LAR file, and we have to pass the parent element, we have to pass a model path, and we have another utility class here where we can conveniently generate paths for the different entities, and we have to pass the actual object here. So I'm going to remove this junk code for now, and I'm going to go ahead and build this whole stuff. But before I build this whole stuff, I have to make sure that the StageMap data handler class is registered as well underneath the portlet data handler class in the LifeWay portlet.xml. So I can see this is registered properly. So I can go ahead and build it. And we should be able, so once it's done, we should be able to actually run an export process and generate a LAR file from our customers, from our customer entities.
Hey Mate, I got a quick question. So
Yes.
a lot of the code that you've shown so far, it looks like it's like boilerplate code, like it could be the same for any developer. Is that code available somewhere where you can like copy and paste it? Because I'm wondering what the minimal amount of work is to get a custom portlet to be able to export and import all of its data.
Actually, some examples are already available in the portal. We usually use the bookmarks portlet as an example. It's very simple. It contains two entities: the bookmarks folder and the bookmarks entry. I usually use that as an example, but I'm going to upload this project with my changes to a blog post I recently created, so it can be downloadable and it can be customized and it will be publicly available. So yes, I'm going to do that. And we also have a Jukebox plugin. The development of the Jukebox plugin has been started by the Spanish office with some friends there, and they asked me to implement the staging part, and practically I did the same for the Jukebox. I've done all this service builder generation and these small amounts of code I appended there, and Jukebox portlet is also available and can be used as a reference.
Okay, so then it's fair to say that in order to enable your custom portlet to be staged, you do have to write some Java code. It's not like you can just declare some base LifeRay classes in your LifeRay portlet.xml and be done. You still have to write code.
Yeah, that's true. So for the 6.2, actually we have streamlined the whole process into very few lines of code. So after I finished with this session, you will be able to see that actually it takes like half an hour to write staging support for your plugin. That's true, but you have to write some code. Staging by default supports only the propagation of the portlet preferences from staging to live, but not content, unfortunately. For 7.0, or for the next release of LifeRay, we are planning some more developer-related changes, and hopefully the developer will even have to code even less code to make staging support for their own plugins. So that's hopefully the future, but future is uncertain.
Right. Okay. Thanks.
No problem. So we've already now we have to do it once more. And then we'll see the result. So basically, yeah, the coders still have to write some code, but one of the targets for 6.2 was to make it very simple and very easy, and it can be achieved in like half an hour. When we finished the development for 6.2, I was even surprised at how fast someone can write staging support for their own plugin. When I was writing a demo, and I finished in 1 hour with everything, with corner cases and testing and stuff, and I was surprised that, hey, this is surprisingly easy. Okay, we have everything in place now. Hopefully. We have the portlet data handler and the StageMap data handler. Olaf was also kind enough to create a create customers portlet that we can just add 10 random customers to our portlet, so I don't have to add manually one by one. If I'm going to the export import section, and I see the content is checked, the customer entity is checked, and I just want to export everything, and I hit the export button. And we can see here that the process has finished. A 10K file, LAR file has been created. Now I'm going to download it, and we can examine what's inside the LAR file. So here we have the LAR file. As I mentioned previously, this is essentially this is a zip file. So we can go inside and check what's underneath the hood. We have the manifest XML, which is basically the descriptor of what has been exported. So it is always different from time to time, but we have some cases like we have the manifest summary, how much customer entities we have added, and we have the 10 number here because we have added 10 customers, and we've serialized 10 customers only.
Hey, Monte, I have a question on the manifest. Mm-hmm. So a lot of times people don't realize that LAR files are not compatible between LifeRay releases. So they will go inside and do some surgery and change the build number to their current build number. Can you comment on how dangerous that is?
It is actually it is not dangerous, but it won't work because we can change for 6.2 we have completely changed the LAR file structure, how we handling it, and the different XML structures. And we are probably going to change it in the future as well. So between versions, LAR files are not compatible. And if someone wants to try to manually edit all the XML files, it's practically undoable. Not because it's not human readable. It's more because we have so many XML files and we have so many to care for that it's practically cannot be done.
Okay, so in 6.2 the validation on import will catch that much cleaner than before.
Yes, absolutely. If you want to import an uncompatible LAR file to your 6.2 environment, the staging will let you know, and the import will let you know that this is not going to happen because of the incompatibility. So if we go inside the LAR file even deeper, I'm going to the group section. I have the group ID here. And here we have the cool stuff. Here we have the portlet data, and since we only exported the customer portlet, I have only the customer portlet data here. And here is the often referenced portlet data XML file. Here we have the summary of what has the portlet exported. So if we go back and check the customer portlet data handler do export part, here we can see that the root element has been created and the group ID has been added to it. So we can see here, this is the root element we've created and the group ID has been appended. And the next part is actually not handled by the customer portlet data handler, but the stage model data handler itself. What has been done is for each customer record, we've created an element, and this is going to be called like this, stage model with all the group ID, and you can see here that we are serializing the UUID as well in order to make the matching between the two groups. We have generated a path where the actual entity is being serialized. So if we go ahead and check out what's underneath the path section, we have to navigate back a bit. We have all the customer element, a customer record serialized one by one in different XML files here under this long directory path. And this is actually it's a one by one serializing of the entity itself with all the columns you can find in the database as well. So we can safely say that our export was successful, but we need this LAR file to be imported to a different site, to a different portlet. So the next stuff we have to do is to implement the import part. What's needed then first is to implement the do import data in the customer portlet data handler as well. So the process is basically the same. the staging environment or the Liferay will call out to the portlet data handler, which will query up the different XML files, and it will delegate the actual job to the customer stage model data handler, which is responsible for importing the specific logic for each and every customer. Once again, this is just a very basic logic we have created for an export, but if you check out the portal's file entry or journal article stage model data handlers, you can find some heavy business logic over there. So let's go ahead and first take care of the customer portlet data handler and implement the import part for that. I'm going to reference again to my cheat sheet. And this is the import part. Okay, so what's really happening here is that we checking the checkbox state itself. So it can happen that we are when we are importing the whole site, we are importing multiple portlets data, and we might not want to import different portlets. So we have to check out for the namespace attribute, the checkbox state coming from the UI as well. As we used to do on the export side, we are doing it the same on the import side. We just call out and check the Boolean parameter, the namespace parameter, and if we don't have to import everything, we just returning a null. I'm going to explain why we are returning a null here, because it might contain some relevant information. So once again, as I mentioned previously, we created the root element, so we have to find the customer elements, and we have to find the XML elements for our data. As we examined the XML previously, we had this customer tag, and we had all the stage model XML tags listed underneath it. So we are just with this call, we are just identifying the customer tag, and we are listing all of their child entities, and with the stage model data handler utility class, we are calling out to import them. And this method will call out to the customer stage model data handler. So I'm going to go ahead and implement.
A quick question. In the export code, you added the group ID, and you said that it wasn't mandatory, but you put it in there. Is that something, can you put anything in there and then get access to it during the import process?
Absolutely. So basically, as I mentioned previously, this is the structure we use for exporting and importing, but this is a totally free-form XML. So if you, in your portlet data handler, you want to obfuscate, because LAR file is a zip file. If you want to obfuscate your XML, or if you want to use a different structure, that's completely doable. So this is not necessary here to define the root element. You can define like a three element structure, or with child and parents and links and everything else you want to do. What's necessary is for the portlet data handlers to export data, that it has to return with a string containing an XML itself. So that's all what you have to care about. But the XML can be totally free-form. So, and the import and the do import data method, you actually get the string data, which is the XML data of what's being read from the LAR file. So you can go ahead and parse this data, and you can go ahead and retrieve all the elements and retrieve all the data you have serialized previously, or you can de-obfuscate your code and do whatever you want. So that's freeform. For the do import data, what you have to care about is that from the XML, if you want the portlet preferences to be updated, then you have to return a portlet preferences at the end of the process, but that's not necessary as well. The entities will be imported anyway. So hopefully that answers your question.
Yeah, I was just thinking that you could put custom business logic, or you could like encrypt the data if you really wanted to, and then decrypt
it. But currently we do not support that. in theory, yes, you can go ahead and obfuscate or make your data secure as you want because it's a totally free form XML. So that's no problem. But the only thing you have to care about is that in the import side, you have to decrypt your data, obviously,
right,
to make it work. Okay, so going to the customer stage metadata handler. We have to implement the do import part for the stage metadata handler as well, and I think this contains that part. This is a bit longer logic, but it's not difficult at all. But we usually do. Well, the user ID is not necessary here. I don't use the user ID attribute anywhere, so I'm going to remove this. Once again, this is the pattern we usually use for importing entities, but we can take different steps, different set of actions here. It's not necessary to handle the entities like this. We are usually creating a service context for setting down some information in it, such as the UUID, because we need that UUID to match the entities on both sides. And we are usually use these different data strategies. What should happen if the LifeRay portal finds a duplicate, finds an already imported version of that entity? What should LifeRay do? We have different data strategies, such as mirror or copy as new. Copy as new means that the entity you are importing will always be copied as a new entity. So basically, you can duplicate entities or and so on and so on. If you are using data strategy mirror, it will try the pair entity during the import, and if there is an entity already there with the same UUID, it's going to update it. So you can check the logic here. If we are using the mirror data strategy, then we are looking for the existing customer on the import side. It's usually done like this. We are trying to fetch the customer, the existing customer, based on the UUID and the group ID. And one important thing here that when we are importing, the customer parameter here is the actual serialized entity from the export side. And this is coming from the LAR file itself. It's not a database object, it's coming from the LAR file itself. So basically, this customer parameter here means a snapshot of the customer as it was on the export side. And we can use the information from the export side, like we are getting the UUID parameter of the customer, which means the same UUID as it was on the export side. If we could find an existing customer, if we couldn't find an existing customer, then we go ahead and add the new customer, and that's it. If we could find, then we are just calling the update customer, and if we are not using the data strategy mirror, then it means we are using the copy as new, then it means we have to always add the customer, and we don't have to look for the pairs on the import side. We just blindly add it because that fits our business needs. One last thing here is the import class model method. If you remember correctly, we had the auth class model on the export side for the stage metadata handler, which was responsible for actually serializing the entity to the LAR file, and the import class model is pretty much doing something similar. What it's doing is populating some ID mapping maps in the background, which can be used to find the referenced entities, or it's being used by the staging to update all the references and update all the information necessary in the background. But it's irrelevant from our perspective now. In this case, we have all set to import our data. So I will go ahead and build this once again and check out what happens. And hopefully we can import our data generated here to a different site. I'm going to create a new site to simulate a staging environment. while it's deploying. I'm calling it a customer site 2. Save it. I'm adding a page, calling it customers 2. Adding it. We have to add the customer portal again. And then if the deployment has been done, then we can go ahead and import this stuff. We just export it. So in this case, we have this cool feature where you can drag and drop a LAR file to import, but I'm going to select here the previously exported LAR file. When we see this, indefinite progress bar, it means that the LAR file has been validated. So what's happening here is the staging is validating the LAR file, and this blue cornered section means that it's valid and we are ready to import it. So if we click the continue, we can see this section here with the import controls. If we think back that we have defined in the portlet data handler the export and import controls, and here's the actual import screen using that import controls and saying the customer entity. Also, if we remember back that we had the manifest XML file in the LAR file, and it contained that we have exported 10 actual customers. And now we here can see, because the manifest is being parsed during the import at the first step of the import, and we can see here that we are going to import 10 customer entities. And we can see some additional information here, that who was the author of the file. It has been exported 15 minutes ago, and the size. But let's just go ahead and click continue. And here we can see the data strategy. Is the mirror and the copy as new. We have all the different explanation sections here, but we usually use mirror, and most of our customers do. But you have other options as well. So I'm just going to go ahead and click the import, and it was so fast it already finished. So let's see if it has been imported anything. Well, no, for some reasons it hasn't imported anything. Well, that's a bummer. Let's do a quick debug here. I think this is wrong. Let's just change the checkbox parameter, maybe that part, and I have the proper elements with all the names we have to look for. I'm setting the UUID and the scope group ID. Let's give it a try again. I hope it will work.
Did you say your prayers to the demo gods before the session?
Yeah, I absolutely did, and I made a backup. So worst case scenario, I'm just using my backup and see what happens there. Because I honestly tested it before the session, so you must believe me. That's all developers say. You must believe me. It was working 10 minutes ago, right?
Yep.
Okay, so let's try it once again. Let's do an import. Select file. Okay, continue, import. Was very fast, and still nothing. I honestly don't know what can be the problem, but let me give it a very quick try, and I'm just overwriting my what I've done right now with what I have as a backup, and see if it's working, and then we can see is it solving the problem or not. But I promise to everyone that I'm going to upload the correct version to my blog post later on, so you will have the correct code, not this buggy one. we have verified that we had all the elements in here too, so it should be working. Oh yeah, the namespace. Well, yeah, some problems because I restored the backup, but let's see what happens. Import, continue, okay. Oh, there we go. Now here we can see that it has been importing the stuff. So I must have coded something wrong during the demo, but here we go. So we can see here that all of the entities we have serialized on the customer site 1. We have it here, and everything in place, and we have successfully coded the staging support for our plugin. So basically, that was all. That was the easy task. We could finish it at least in 1 hour with some extra stuff as well. So it was fairly easy, and there might be some unknown methods, but there are hundreds of convenience methods in the staging environment that you can use and you can rely on. And it's always a good thing if you want to develop your own plugin with the staging support. You can always reference the portal's code. We have lots of data handlers there, and we have the journal and the file entry as a very complex ones, referencing several other stuff and doing some custom business logic. So it's always a good thing to go ahead and check out how they are working if you want to dig in the topic deeper. But this is the most basic thing you have to do when you are basically want to add staging support for your plugin. So that's very simple. Of course, as the business logic gets more and more complicated, the code grows. But you could see that in like hundreds of lines of code with all the extra imports of the Java files and the constructors and everything. It's very short, and it's very easy to implement your own staging support for your own plugin. So that was all from my side.
Hey, Mate, thanks a lot. I have a couple of questions. I noticed during the import process there was a checkbox for importing like comments and ratings. And I also know that certain entities you can associate with tags and categories. If you have a custom portlet with a custom data type and you are supporting those kinds of features in Liferay, do you have to do anything extra to your staging code to enable the proper import and export of that?
No, actually the staging is prepared for handling the comments and ratings and the different categories and tags. So you should, if you add the comments and ratings support, for example, to your own entity, then it's the staging will know if it's a commentable entity, and it will export and import the stuff automatically.
Does that also include custom attributes like Expando?
It includes basically what of the convenience method I showed you is the add class model method. It's actually responsible for processing the comments and ratings and the Expando stuff as well. And the part of that, the pair of that method, the import class model, is actually responsible for processing the Expando and the comments and ratings on the import side. So it's automatically being done.
Okay, awesome. Well, thank you very much, Mate. Does anyone in here at Liferay HQ have any questions for Mate?
What if you're exporting a whole site? Does it take the theme? I know there used to be a theme uploader war or something like that you needed if you were working with themes in a stage site back in 6.1.
So the question, Mate, is if you're exporting an entire site, does it include the theme? Is that a custom theme that you may have applied to the site?
Yeah.
No, the theme is not being exported because the theme is practically somewhat code as well, but the reference is being added during the export, and it is being validated that the theme has been deployed to the import site as well. So what actually is being done, then the export happens with no problem, but you should have your own theme deployed to the import side as well. And when the staging validates the LAR file, it will check for a theme as well. And if it's not there, it will notify you that you should go ahead and deploy the theme, and then the import process can finish.
Okay. So one other question. So in my experience using staging, what was the question I had? I just forgot what it was. So staging in, I think it was in 6.1, we added support to do, or no, maybe it was 6.2, for merging of pages. I'm wondering if by doing what you did during this session, is your code automatically going to work when multiple sites are merged together by different teams?
I think so. I do not recall anything in particular for that change. I mean, we haven't really changed anything in particular for that area. So I think it should work. I mean, we've designed the new staging environment because the stage metadata handlers in 6.2 was a new concept we've come up with. But basically, it should be backwards compatible. So, I mean, at a certain point, we've already discussed that the LAR files are not compatible between different versions, but your code should be backwards compatible more or less. But I always encourage everyone to test on their code on the new features as well, obviously.
Okay. Okay. Any other questions? Let me check IRC. I don't see any questions on IRC.
Me neither.
Okay, so awesome. Thank you very much, Mate, for your time. And again, this session is recorded, so if you got sidetracked during this session, you can go back and check out the recording. It should post on YouTube in about, I don't know, 4 or 5 minutes. I wanted to show you quickly the upcoming schedule for the next couple of weeks. If I can find it here. Okay, hopefully you'll see my browser. Let's see if I can move my screen over here. Yeah, so this week we did Mate's session. 2 weeks from today, we're going to do a session on securing remote JSON web services with Tomas. So if you're interested in that, check out the upcoming sessions URL, as you can see I've highlighted here. And then 2 weeks after that, I believe, is going to be a special session. We're going to do a live webcast from the North America Symposium in Boston, the LifeRay North America Symposium in Boston. I'm not entirely sure what time that's going to be. It depends on the final agenda. But we're going to pick out a relevant session. So for those of you who cannot attend the North America Symposium in Boston this year, we'll be doing a live webcast of one of those sessions, one of the technical sessions from the event. And so that should be interesting. And if you have any other, if you want to see what's coming up after that, check out the calendar, which I can show you right here. You can actually subscribe to it on the DevLife homepage. So there's a calendar here. So Mate, and then Tomas, and then if I go to the next one, on the October 7th will be the North America Symposium dev session stream. Not sure again which topic we'll cover there, but it will be relevant to all of you. And then 2 weeks after that, we'll have another community member, Andrew Jardine, who will be speaking on OpenSearch. So if you're interested in some fancy developer tricks and techniques for powering your LifeRay search, you don't want to miss that one. And then there's some other sessions later on. You can check out the calendar. There's a couple of links here to subscribe. Again, this session is recorded. You can also see the previous sessions that we had a couple of weeks ago from Olaf, and a couple of weeks before that from Ray Auger. I think we'll close for today. So I wanted to thank all of you who showed up and attended our session. And thank you again to Mate for presenting staging. Very interesting, and a lot of good developer information for supporting staging. So
Thanks for the opportunity. It was a pleasure being here.
Yeah, thank you. So I'll say goodbye from Los Angeles, and Mate, have a good evening in Budapest, and we'll speak to you soon.
Thank you. Goodbye.
Bye-bye.